It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm reading this article from CNBC, Eric.
Yeah.
More companies, especially airlines, warn that higher costs will eat into profits. More companies are warning that a surge in the cost of fuel and employee pay hikes will eat into profits this quarter. Airlines whose biggest expenses are jet fuel and labor are getting hit particularly hard. UPS and airlines are now digesting big new labor deals, while Hollywood and the auto industry are at odds with unions. You know, you think about this after all the inflation that we have seen over the past couple of years. That's one of the reasons that everybody wants a big raise. Right now. Well, either it hurts profitability or it hurts profitability. It raises prices even more.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, seeing the fact that inflation was back up to 3.7%, you know, and you see, you know, UPS, they deliver stuff that people want.
Mm-hmm.
So that hits across the board. Fuel will hit across across the board, not just airlines, but everywhere it will hit. And the combination of both. And then if the auto workers are going to see a raise, and that raise right now is going to be cut into profits of the companies, but also possibly cut into investments in the company. And will it transition the movement to EVs slower or faster? I don't know. But the fact is the government mandates of what the companies have to do are already there. So they have no choice in that matter. So will they look more to AI, more to automation, lay off more?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the things that we're looking at, and it doesn't look favorable.
Well, and a new law that it looks like it will become law very soon in California that's going to raise the minimum wage for fast food workers, chain fast food workers, to $20 an hour is going to, because there's only one way that goes, that those chain fast foods, and it has to do with the number of locations they have nationwide, not just in California. So it goes to $20 an hour. Well, okay, now you'll know why you're paying $20 for a meal at lunchtime at a fast food drive-thru. You have to pass that on to the consumer.
It's not fast. It's not cheap anymore.
No, it's not cheap. So once that hits in California, of course, other states and cities are going to look at, okay, yeah, we need to go up to $20 an hour. And then we've always said, well, if it doesn't have an impact, because that was the argument back in the day. I don't know if anybody's even making that argument anymore. Now it's just, no, give them $20 an hour because we say so. But the argument was for a long time, well, it's a good thing. Look at all the things they can do with all the money they make. Well, if it's a good thing, then raise it to $100 an hour. And there's a reason that even the most liberal of politicians will not promote it as it's only $20 an hour. It's not $100 an hour, and there's a reason they have to do this in increments.
Well, every time they did that, the GAO would come out and say, "Sorry, guys, you're wrong. An increase in labor cost is going to cause an increase in prices."
Right.
And we've seen that. I mean, that's the idiocy that the left was trying to sell, but they really don't. I agree with you on that. It doesn't seem like they're trying to sell that anymore.
No. They're just doing it now because we say so. Because we've been, and $15 an hour just sounds mundane. But what you'll see in response to that is two things. Those locations will raise the cost of their product to the point that the market will bear, and now automation. They'll incentivize in those areas, and they can tailor it on the app. They can tailor it especially. But we're seeing it already for a number of reasons. I mean, more and more people don't want to work fast food jobs, but also the fact that in order to make a profit, you just can't have as many people in that store. You're going to have to automate as many things as you can. And that will be ramped up in California.
You know, the lead editorial, that you brought that up. We were looking at the CNBC article, but Wall Street Journal lead editorial, how California does business. Sacramento subverts democracy to extort fast food restaurants. Mm-hmm. And they take a shot at, not DeSantis, at Newsom, who says DeSantis is authoritarian. Says California Governor Newsom professes to be deeply worried about democracy. Good for him that he doesn't seem concerned about how unions and Democrats in Sacramento are subverting democracy to extort fast food businesses to do their bidding. And he goes through the entire thing, including the fact that they threatened the fast food industry that was, wanting to try to get a referendum on this. Mm-hmm. And they threatened them, with more regulation and everything mm-hmm. else. So they dropped mm-hmm. it. They got to a negotiation that changes the process a little bit, but it's not going to change anything that happens.
No.
And you're now going to have a board that can do whatever they want to fast food restaurants without the legislature having to vote on it. Mm-hmm. So the legislature can say, well, we're not the ones that are increasing wages here. We've got the board who's doing it. Talk about subverting democracy in order to punish companies right there.
Yep.
Let me just see where they get here. The point that here it is. The double attack threatened to put many fast food restaurants out of businesses and drove them to negotiate a compromise with the governor and the unions. They had a choice of being shot point blank or in the back while on the run.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
Oh, it's Mr. Newsom recently called Florida Governor Ron DeSantis functionally authoritarian, but who's the real authoritarian? Mr. Newsom's deal gives him sweeping powers to regulate the fast food industry. It also raises the minimum wage for fast food employees to $20 an hour next year, up from the statewide $16 minimum for all other industries.
Yeah.
Restaurants in affluent areas typically pay higher wages and can more easily raise their prices to compensate, but those in the lower income areas will struggle. Will farm workers in Fresno pay $7 for a Big Mac? An analysis by Oxford Economics estimates the $20 minimum wage would lead to a loss of 5,100 fast food jobs and more than 300 establishments.
Yep. Well, because, again, how you're going to accommodate is your manager's going to be required to do more things. You have a smaller human staff, greater automation, and by the way, also limited hours. We don't need to be open 24 hours. If it doesn't make any sense anymore, we can close it down. You think about probably the biggest fast food chain or one of the most famous fast food chains in out of California, and the burger chain. I'm just In-N-Out Burger, yeah. And these are, by the way, the managers of those stores of In-N-Out burger locations make a ton of money, but it's not an easy job. If you've ever been to an In-N-Out, you know how fast they have to go, but they have to get it right. And the thing is that, all right, we'll just raise the cost of our food. You can't change. There are some situations where you can't just change the business model overnight. You're not going to change the way you deliver the food. You're not going to change how you cook the food. Then in that case, you're going to just have to change the price.
So unemployment in California has crept up to 4.6%, the second highest in the country after Nevada, from 3.8% last July. One reason is businesses are leaving the states for where they don't have to worry about getting extorted by the Democratic union machine for daring to ask voters to override the legislature. Democracy withers in this one-party state.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always consequences. And look, even when I was young, I realized it. I told the story last week about when we were talking about the Auto Workers Union, and when I was a member of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, I wasn't on the negotiating committee, but they knew I had a college degree. We were in a very small plant, less than 100 people, and they didn't trust the business manager. They didn't trust the guy who was negotiating the contract for us. So they asked me, they said, you got the college degree, read it, and just make sure we didn't miss anything. Tell us if you think it's a good deal. That was a 9% increase. And then just standard, think about this here. They're going from roughly $16 to $20 an hour. It's like 20% immediately.
Yeah, that's a 25%.
25, yeah.
Yeah. Increase.
Yeah,
right.
25% increase like that.
Yeah.
Ours was 9%. And remember what I said. I told them, yeah, you sign it, good deal, but I'm losing my job because I had low seniority
workers,
and I was out.
Yeah, entry-level workers, which is, you talk about fast food. That's where a lot of young people learn to, all right, here's what you got to do to have a job and keep a job. But entry-level workers, they're going to be kicked to the curb. We don't have any room for that anymore. Now we're going to have managers doing more things. We're going to have full-time employees, people that can be here at more hours, that can do more things during those hours. So we're going to require more experience. We're going to require a number of things in order to qualify for the job.
Tell me whether I'm going too far here, but I've always had the feeling that somebody like Newsom wants to run for president because the goal of liberals isn't just to get California to be doing it. They don't want California to be losing population. One of the reasons that they want the socialism across the country is so the states that they're from can remain at least equal. That they won't. They won't be.
I think that's absolutely the case.
Economically, they won't suffer tremendously.
Right, because where are you going to go?
Right, because the whole nation will have to live under their rules, which is one reason why I think that. Because Newsom's not stupid.
No.
Newsom knows that California is going completely in the wrong direction.
Right.
There's a ton of liberals that know that.
Right.
And that's why they want more power, because they want Texas to be the same and Florida to be the same as California.
Right.
They want South Dakota to be the same as California.
Well, and here's the thing. Government cannot set the value of any given role in the workforce.
No, they can't.
That is determined by essentially the consumer and the employers of, and also the employees or potential employees. There's a restaurant that I like to go to. It's not a fast food restaurant, but I go to it. My family goes to it. And their menu prices are a little bit higher. I wouldn't call it. It's not one of these, fancy or elitist restaurants. But it's a great restaurant. Their food is always consistent. It's always good. And we go there on a regular basis because we know that, well, we're not going to be sending it back to the kitchen. Well, sorry, you got this wrong or this doesn't taste right. It's always good. And the ingredients are always fresh. And it's like, okay, this is why you pay for it, right? So when we do go out to eat, we often go there because we know, well, we're going to take a gamble on a new place and pay, a little less money, but what's that money for if I don't feel like I really got my money's worth at all? And so the thing is that fast food doesn't fit that category. Now, there are some fast food chains that kind of rise above. People, the In-N-Out people will tell you there's nothing better. Being from Texas, Whataburger fits that category. You can talk about Raising Cane's and all these fast food locations that kind of have made their brand really work on a number of Chick-fil-A, but they've made it work in a number of ways. Their products and or their service. And usually it takes both if you're really going to rise. And people are willing to pay a little bit more. But that's not what's happening here. The government's saying you have to pay more, but it's not performance-based. It's not earning the business, your money. It's the government saying that's what you have to pay if you want to eat here. That's not how the market works and has ever worked.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920. This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A friend of mine called me to task this week for my coverage of the latest consumer price index for food. His complaint was that I neglected to talk about the price of eggs, which for well over a year has been a top story in the food price arena. So I'm sorry. I'm going to get right to it now. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, says that last month the retail price of eggs went down by 2.5%, and compared to last year at this time, egg prices are down by 18%. I asked USDA economist Matt McLaughlin for the reason.
Last year, we had a large outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza among commercial egg layers. So far in 2023, we have not had a confirmed case among U.S. commercial egg layers.
So egg production is back up to normal with no supply chain problems, and that has brought egg prices down to earth. So there's your story. Hope you like it. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think that's the whole fast food thing in California, I think, is a perfect example. I'd mentioned, Newsom's smart enough. He knows that where they're going in the state is in a horrible direction. Mm-hmm. But it's if you're in Democrat politics in California, it's your job security.
Yeah. Right.
Obeying the Democratic Union mantra is how you keep your security and keep your job. But you can't change economics.
Right.
Yeah. Government can come in and put regulations in, but you can't change how people respond to incentive and disincentive. And the Democrats know that. I mean, they knew it when they talked about the windfalls profit tax numerous times on oil companies.
Yep.
They said, well, wait a minute. You're talking about the fact that you're talking about the fact you're going to, if they're making profits and they make more profits, you're going to tax them. Well, that means you're going to increase their price more. You want them to lower their prices.
Right.
Well, no, they won't. Well, what do you mean they won't? That's what they do all the time. Every time there's an increase, there isn't a clearer example of market forces of economics working than gasoline. There's a price increase anywhere, price of gasoline goes up. It goes down, it becomes, if price of oil goes down, gasoline goes down. And it happens daily, you can see it. Yeah. And so they tried to sell the American public. They did the same on minimum wage. The GAO came in and said, the General Accounting Office said, no, you increase minimum wage, people will lose their jobs. There's always an economic consequence of raising prices or lowering prices.
Yep. And that's it. And the people with experience, instead of the people that the liberals pretend to be helping are the ones that get kicked to the curb. There are fewer jobs for them as a result of these moves. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see that again in California. You'll see automation ramp up, but you'll also see different roles for managers of these fast food locations. They're going to have to do more work, and they're going to hire fewer humans. It's that simple.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. You got it on CNN. I got the breaking news on Fox, and then it disappeared from my phone, and I couldn't find it online. It's not on the Fox website.
Yeah.
But looks like the Iranian deal, their hostages for our hostages plus $6 billion of their frozen assets has gone through.
It looks like the exchange is going to happen. 5 Americans, this is from CNN, 5 Americans who have been imprisoned in Iran are expected to be released sometime today as a part of a wider U.S.-Iran deal. This according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry. The U.S. government has designated all 5 Americans as being wrongfully detained, but it looks like that they will be released. There is a Qatari jet on standby in Iran to bring the 5 Americans to Doha, according to a source briefed on details of the matter, and that source telling that to CNN earlier. So that's in exchange for the $6 billion in Iranian funds.
Iranian, we will release Iranians too that we have.
Yes, right. The entire, this entire equation, if you look at it, because, by the way, they still have in this version of the story that the accounts, the money in the accounts that's being released to Iran will only be able, Iran will only be able to use these funds for humanitarian purposes, and each transaction will be monitored by the U.S. Treasury Department. Monitored or controlled? And how do you check up to see what Iran is telling you on how that money is being spent? If they tell you this, how do you know? We've already heard from Iranian officials.
The Iranian president.
They said
we're not going to do it.
We're going to do whatever we want with the money.
No, they're lying.
Whatever's in our interest.
No, the United States is lying.
And the Treasury Department won't be able to do a darn thing.
The Biden administration's lying again.
Yep. So, look, it's good news that Americans are coming home if they're wrongfully detained in Iran. My question would be, well, how many more Americans are going to be detained going forward if Iran wants something else? Because we talk about the $6 billion in funds and Iranians being released. Well, and by the way, the CNN story doesn't mention that part of it.
Kirby already said last week, if it happens again, we'll deal again.
He's okay with it. He's okay with it.
Yeah, he was clear.
As long as
he was clear.
He said yes, and we'll do anything to get Americans home.
Right. Take our hostages. We'll pay ransom.
How many more Americans will be held hostage by Iran or other nations?
These are the kind of things that you would expect some type of outrage. I'm reading here from thehill.com. The Biden administration agreement with Iran to unfree $6 billion of funds in exchange for the release of 5 American prisoners has roiled lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Republicans in Congress and even a few Democrats fear that such a deal encourages hostile nations to take more Americans traveling abroad as hostages in the future. Can we go back to our economic argument again? There's an incentive to take American hostages. Mm-hmm. We will pay ransom money.
Mm-hmm. And we'll pay it every time. Because it doesn't have to be $6 billion that's handed over. It could be, well, we want our way in terms of oil trade.
While the administration has touted the agreement, which comes after more than a year of indirect negotiations, as a diplomatic breakthrough, critics say Washington has catered to a foreign adversary it shouldn't have negotiated with in the first place. If we're paying $1 billion per kidnapped individual, then you're going to see more kidnappings. That's why you don't negotiate with terrorists. That's why you don't negotiate with kidnappers. The idea of basically paying to release in this effect a hostage is a terrible idea, said Mitt Romney.
Mm. So even liberals know it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, the administration has to lie.
Yeah.
They have to give you the impression that this money somehow will be monitored and won't be used for terrorism. That's the other thing. It's not just that the assets being unfrozen, the $6 billion, it's not just, okay, they're going to go and spend it and have a nice holiday and go buy a nice mansion. They're going to use it directly to finance terrorism to kill Americans in the future.
Yep.
Administration's okay with that.
Yep. And they said it. They said it even before releasing the Americans. We're going to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
With the money.
Yeah, we played the audio for you last week.
Yeah.
I just, this is where you shake your head in absolute disgust. And you have to ask yourself, what side is the administration on? Iran is still the world's leading exporter of terrorism in the world.
Yeah.
And we are financing it.
Yep. And they have a long history of taking American hostages.
That's why we have the assets to begin with.
Yep.
That's where it came. That's why we froze the assets.
Yep. And we ask for it to happen all over again.
Yeah.
These Americans coming home will be free. And let's hope that they all make it home safely. But other Americans will be in harm's way as a result of this deal. And that will go on indefinitely.
What amazed me last week was when Kirby basically admitted it. It was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to argue with it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do whatever.
We'll do whatever.
Well, if they take, we would suggest you not go to Iran, but if they take our hostages in the future,
We'll do anything to get you home.
Anything to get you home.
Yep.
It's like, oh, well, you just announced to them, we're willing to pay ransom all the time. Everybody, every one of our adversaries in the world hear that? Kidnap an American.
Right.
Jeez.
I mean, it's just maddening. It really is maddening. And now we just have to sit and wait for it. You know, you're not seeing people outraged by this, but you'll see people that are outraged by it. It'll be much like the botched exit of Afghanistan. That for many years, people were saying, no, we need to bring everybody home. We need to bring everybody home. And after the botched exit, and everybody said, oh, well, maybe we should have left some Americans there. Maybe troops should have stayed there. And now you're not hearing a ton of outrage. You are from some of us, but you don't hear a ton of outrage. But you will when Iran takes more Americans hostage. And it will be a direct result of this kind of policymaking.
Just amazing.
It really is, and we don't learn our lesson as a nation.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, but it's not when you see, for example, what we're doing, when you think about it, what we're doing on energy, going to our adversaries,
right.
Begging Saudi Arabia,
right,
begging Venezuela,
right,
begging adversaries of the United States, enemies of the United States,
please send us more oil,
as we won't do it ourselves,
right,
and as this administration kills, as they did day one, tens of thousands of great energy union jobs. Then we want our enemies to pump the oil and give it to us.
Right. And we're going to end up doing the same thing.
Sell it to us.
Sell it to us. Right. And we're going to end up doing the same thing with lithium if it ever gets to that point.
Yeah.
We'll be begging other nations for lithium.
As we close down our own mines.
Even if the mandates fall away, it won't matter. We're still going to require lithium, and we'll shut our own mines down, and we'll ask other nations, unfriendly nations, I don't know, maybe Afghanistan. They just found a massive lithium field in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be squashed. The activists have been on it. We know this. If you follow the activists, you know where the policy is going to go. It just takes a few minutes from one to get to the other. And that's exactly what we'll have. We'll have this massive, very rich field of whatever it is. Well, no, we're not going to do it. And then we'll go beg our enemies and frenemies and people and countries who hate us to send it to us. So that way, when they decide to invade, I don't know, Ukraine, we can in part cripple ourselves when none of it is necessary. We shouldn't be taking anything from anyone. Everybody should be at our feet begging us to produce. But we choose to do it the other way.
Even Democratic Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Menendez spoke up over concerns that President Biden was creating incentives for more Americans to be taken hostage. We know that.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Every Democrat knows that. And it's like, so why are you doing it?
So why? Why
are you begging our foreign adversaries to produce energy for us when we can produce it here? Why are we committing energy suicide? Why are we committing economic suicide? Why are we committing national security suicide to prop up other regimes around the world that view us as their enemy?
Right.
Why are we doing it? And why are we encouraging it and then bragging about it when we do it?
Right. Doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it's pure insanity.
Yet we keep doing it.
Yeah. And watch, they'll be bragging about it today at the White House.
Oh, no, they will.
What a great day it is. We've got the hostages.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what?
I'm glad these Americans are coming home, but I'm not happy about the fact that it puts other Americans in danger.
Yep.
And it's for an indefinite period.
And
it's as long as Iran wants to control the equation,
and
they can.
Not just Iran. Anywhere. Any of our enemies.
Yep.
You've sent the signal out.
Oh, yeah.
And when Kirby said that last week, I can't believe he served in the military. I can't believe he was in the Navy.
Man, I saw so many people on social last week. A few weeks ago when it was announced.
What the
hell
happened?
They were just taking him to task.
How in the hell do you go from where he was as an admiral to actually promoting the fact that communicating the fact to our foreign adversaries, kidnap an American and we'll pay the ransom.
Yeah.
In the future. What the hell happens to somebody like him?
I don't know.
How do you get that kind of mind?
I just don't know.
I
really don't.
Well, mind or mindset, I guess.
No, because now he's in. He's in. This is his mindset. This is how he thinks. He's absolutely part of this administration and doesn't think differently.
What an embarrassment. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was just reading that Mayor Adams in New York saying they may have to do a 15% across-the-board cut on the entire budget in New York City because of the migrant problem.
Look,
15% across the board. I mean, it's just that's when, and that's going to be in the next year. You think about how all these major Democratic cities are going to be hit here in the next year because this isn't going to stop. You saw the Fox News story, the train coming in from Mexico, going through Mexico, heading to the border with I don't know how many.
Right. And it's going to continue. It will, because if you want to come here, the thought is you need to get here before an election year.
Right.
A major presidential election year has too much spotlight on it. Don't get caught in the back and forth, the political football. Get here by the end of this year. That's the mindset. That's the thought behind it. So between now and the end of the year, you're going to see that activity ramp up in a big way.
Right, because the thought process is Biden may try to clamp down during the election season in order to ensure that he's elected because the American public doesn't like it.
Right. And you don't want to be caught in that. And so we're going to see that activity increase, no doubt.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood.